Welcome to Curious Goldfish, a podcast community where music and curiosity come together through interesting conversations with the music makers of our world. I'm your host, Jason English. You can find Curious Goldfish in all the major podcast and social media platforms, and of course, we have all of our content on our website, curiousgoldfish.com. Jon and Channing Krentz of Lake Lyndale. I really appreciate your time.
How's it going?
It's good. It's good. I know it's we're on the verge of the holiday season, and you all have a release, a single coming out right before Thanksgiving, I think. So depending on when this is posted and published, that'll be a thing. But I'm sure you all are busy, so I really appreciate your time. I guess you all are married, and I kind of want to ask a little bit about that, just in a good way.
Sure.
So, Jon, I'll start with you. I'll put you on the spot. I guess what do you appreciate most about Channing?
Oh my gosh, I feel like I'm in marriage counseling. So as far as work dynamic, it's amazing because there's no really BS. We can be very frank, very honest. And our relationship started through music, Channing being a songwriter and me a guitar player. And I'm avoiding the question though. What do I appreciate most about Channing? I think
Get to the
Channing, respect for her artistic integrity. I think there's a lot of pressure in the industry to follow trends or go a particular way. And I've always respected that Channing has been true to herself as a songwriter and artist. And I think, you can see people cut corners maybe by abandoning that integrity, but I respect that she sticks to it for better or worse.
Okay. All right. Well, so I'll modify the question. What do you appreciate most about her as a wife?
Oh,
I know. I was like, hey, wait a second.
Yeah, exactly. She's waiting for that answer.
She keeps it chill.
Okay.
Our lives are pretty chaotic with, a lot of different things happening at every given time, whether it's inside of the music industry or outside. And this sounds so terrible and maybe misogynistic, but she keeps everything so clean and I'm like so filthy. So I do appreciate that. And it sounds so terrible to say, but I got to say it.
It's the little things. All right. That's good. Channing, what about you?
For me, one of the main things I've always appreciated is, one of the reasons that I always tell people that I fell in love with Jon in the first place was he does what he says he's going to do. And I feel like, I don't know, that gets more and more important through life because there's so many people who can kind of like talk the talk, so to say. And he's one who always shows up and does what he says he's going to do. So I've always really respected that. The work ethic, that is another huge thing that I've always appreciated. There's never any complaining. Like, schedules are crazy. Everyone's schedule is crazy. And we live in a world where, you are as busy. Everyone's just always so busy. Like anytime you ask someone, it's like, oh, I'm just so busy, overwhelmed. And he never really lets it overwhelm him. He just keeps working and there's no complaining. It's just like get up and bust it all day long. And it's just, it's really, yeah, I've always really admired that. And this, just the respect that we have for each other. And I feel like, we've been married. We just had our 8-year anniversary.
Okay.
We've been together about 12 years and navigating our 20s together, I will say was very messy. I feel like everyone's 20s, it's a little messy. That's okay. But I just always feel like with Jon, we know how to work through things. And I would like to think we know how to work them out in a healthier way. Obviously then it was, we had to learn, but where we're at now, it's something that I really value is that we can fight, and have our disagreements, but our problem solving has just gotten so much better. And so I really, yeah, admire that as well. Just being able to talk through things and even if agree to disagree sometimes, and that's okay.
Sounds great. Well, so credit to you both for having lasted that long in a marriage, but also the fact that I think you're together for work and play. It's a normal human instinct to kind of maybe need a little bit of space,
Yeah.
right? For
Yeah.
whatever. But do you guys have there been times I would imagine that it's like, okay, I need a little bit of
Oh,
break from John, or vice
absolutely.
versa.
I mean, I think for both. I mean, I think that's just
Yeah,
natural, but um I I do have to laugh a little bit because we have a lot of friends in the music industry, and when they start dating someone in their band or anything, I'm like, I'm just letting you know. I don't recommend it unless you're like taking it seriously, because if it goes bad, it goes bad. So
right,
I do always say that because I have, multiple friends in that situation. They'll be like, "Well, you two work together." And I was like, "We do, but you didn't see the first 5 or 6 years." But all that to say, I'm always like, as long as you're for real about it, because if it goes bad, it gets pretty
yeah,
ugly. But you know, if it doesn't,
okay,
it's great because we are able to have each other's back. But just like John said, it's like there's no tiptoeing around things. It's like, no, don't really love that idea. Like I feel like with some people you have to like,
right,
communicate a little differently. And while it is with love, it's a little easier to just be like, I think we cut out a lot of that, just the
Fluff.
nonsense, that kind of
yeah,
like
yeah,
being around different ideas and things that we should or shouldn't do. So in that sense,
okay,
it's great. And I mean, one of the biggest parts that I've also seen with people in this industry, and then it can be hard when one's gone and one's at home a lot. So I will say it is a lucky thing that a lot of times we're traveling together, because I feel like that really I've seen it take a toll on other relationships, and I know that it can. I mean, and it's not just this
mm,
industry. It's a lot of things that people have to
sure,
travel for work, but I'd say that's
okay,
like a very big perk of it.
okay. Well, I
Yeah.
appreciate you sharing. That's awesome. And I think it's pretty well known. You all met in college, and I think you were filling in for one of John's performances one night, and after going through a whole thing with your vocals that you
Yeah.
were recovering from, and that's
Yeah.
kind of how you guys got going. But I guess what was the who made the first move in terms of the dating aspect? Like how did that go? How did that go down?
Oh,
Oh,
I mean, I got shut down like 5 times. I can still go back and look at Facebook messages and just like ignoring or whatever.
Facebook messages. Um, okay, yeah, I guess that is true. Now that I think about it, yeah, you're right. You were you were the one. But I feel like that's even before I subbed in the band or any of
Oh,
that.
okay,
Right?
right,
I feels like another life ago. I know it wasn't
yeah,
that long ago, but
yeah.
But it went.
and
Well,
we did a lot of hey, just like per our conversation we just had. When we first started dating, we're like, should we do this? Like, this kind of
right,
seems like
Right.
maybe a bad idea. So I feel
yeah.
like it took us a bit to get to the point where we're like, okay, we're kind of going all in here. So
Yeah. All right. Well, good for you all. So you all represent half of the band Lake and Lyndale,
yeah,
right? You've got two other members, and you guys all I think met in college, but I think collectively you all made the decision to move from Minnesota down to Nashville about 7 years ago. Is that
yeah,
right?
we did. So Eric Clifford is our bass player and Tyler Claver is our drummer. And honestly, I knew both of them before I knew John.
Mm,
Because we went to school together before he got there, and we had like mutual best friends. So we go back long, long time, and we all played in a different band in Minnesota for several years before we decided just kind of the songwriting aspect was always kind of pulling me towards here, and it's also closer to my family in Illinois. So it was kind of always my vision to end up in Nashville.
okay.
And so I think just finally we were like, okay, if we don't do it, we're probably not going to do it. So we ended up the four of us making the move together.
Okay.
Yeah.
So four Midwesterners basically in the South, and in Nashville. How has that worked out? And what was the biggest surprise and sort of, the biggest, looking back the last 7 years, that you have experienced that, you didn't expect necessarily?
Hmm. I mean, honestly, I've just loved it. I really have. I think for me, it was when I moved to Minnesota, that always felt like it was a stepping stone to something else. Whereas like moving here, it really does
Mm,
feel like home a little bit. And so where I grew up, my family, they're like 5 hours from here. So like in that sense, didn't feel super different from where I grew up. But like I will say the weather, Minnesota to here,
for sure.
we go back up there and I'm like, during the winter, I'm like, how did I do that? I was just talking to my mom on the phone the other day. I'm like, how did I do that? And she's like, I have no idea. I
Hmm.
have no idea. But as far as surprises, I don't know. I always felt like it was the right move, and just the growth, like as a songwriter and watching the boys all as musicians. I've watched them grow so much, and I just feel like it was the right move for us.
No, that's
I don't
great.
know if that answered your
I
question.
think
I
Yeah.
kind of went around there, but
for me, one of the biggest surprises after we moved is what a strong sense of community there is
mm,
in the industry.
yeah.
Um, when we used to travel down to Nashville and take little trips to kind of feel it out before we decided to move. And we always knew there was so many great people, so much talent in such like a small area. And I think a lot of people have in their mind that there's just like insane competition and cutthroat. And there's like that to a degree. To a
Yeah, to an
degree,
Right.
there's like
extent.
a healthy aspect of that. But
Sure.
everyone is so warm and welcoming. It's not like a competition of who's the best drummer, who's the best guitar player. Like so
Yeah.
many amazing guitar player friends, and we throw each other gigs, and it is truly, truly a big family,
Yeah.
which is surprising because I've heard
Did
Yeah.
you?
opposite things maybe
Yeah.
about. Like I've never lived in New York or LA, but I hear different things. I can't
Mhm.
Mhm.
like speak on those cities from firsthand experience, but I I don't think they're on par with Nashville when it comes to just
Right.
the charm and community.
Oh,
No,
I know
I
one thing that surprised me a little bit, which I guess I should have known, but just there are days when I'm so overwhelmed because one, there's always something happening that, you feel like you need to be at. Which again, I guess shouldn't be a surprise. But then also the amount of people who come and visit, and then you're like finding yourself like going downtown and like doing the Broadway thing because people come into town, and it's like if I've said this before, that could just be like my job is just like
Yeah.
taking friends who are visiting around to places. And so for that is one thing sometimes I have to be like, all right, this week I gotta just, find a little more
Yeah.
chill.
Yeah, that's a great point. Because you always feel the pressure to network and everything. And on
Right.
any given day, there's something amazing happening. But yeah, the balance of like networking and
Yeah,
then the
it's a
mental
balance.
health and just like figuring out how to navigate that. And I guess we haven't perfected it either, but we're better than we used to be.
No, that's good. I think the some of the artists I've talked to that are in Nashville, it takes them all sort of different amounts of time to get there. But are you all at the point where when you gig, is it all pretty much your originals and stuff, or are you still having to sort of fill in the
No,
blank spaces with covers and other
Yeah, like
similar types of appearances?
like on Friday, for example, we're doing a corporate gig.
Okay.
And yeah, it's just making some money to help
Yeah.
put out
yeah,
new music and
Yeah.
content.
Yeah.
I've also learned that like no matter what level, you're never above like a corporate gig because the
Right.
biggest artists play those still
Oh
because
yeah.
it's a nice payday and
yeah.
everything.
And I think yeah, doing, when we moved, we're like, we're not going to do any covers, any cover gigs. And then it's like, when you look at it from the standpoint of like, this all goes back into like our music and being able to put out more videos and all the stuff, then it kind of, you kind of
Sure.
get past that a little bit and you're like, all right, we're funding the project, and that's kind of what you sometimes you gotta do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's cool though. You've been to Nashville, I assume.
Yeah.
It's cool to be able to go just a couple miles down the road and play the same venue a couple times every month. But it's always new people that are getting to
Mm.
hear you, and so it's been cool to gain some fans of our original music through those
Yeah.
cover gigs
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah, that's true.
No, and that, yeah, I would not feel bad about those corporate gigs because they pay well and the companies can afford them, and I'm sure
Yeah.
it would take probably a good number of just regular gigs to sort of make that same amount of money. So yeah, y'all
Absolutely.
should definitely keep doing that for sure. So tell me a little bit about the strategy around the singles, through the years. I think you all have one EP that you've released.
Mhm.
I think that's right, In the Nude. Is that right?
Oh, yeah. That was our 2020 project. We put an EP out called Habits, but that was like right when we moved to
Mm.
Nashville, like many
Okay.
years ago. And it was kind of one of those things where um we moved here and we were trying to we went through like a whole rebranding process because we were in a different band,
Mm.
um got here, and we're like, we need to put out an EP like really quick. So looking back, we could have just
Yeah.
been taken a little more time. But so we do have that EP called Habits. So that was right when
Okay.
we moved here about 7 years ago. And then the In the Nude EP, more stripped back versions of a few songs. That was kind of our 2020 project.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is your goal to do like a full length sort of album, at some point, or is it hey, we're just gonna,
I mean, I
the
think
music we make, or do these singles, right?
I'm sure we will at some point. I know we're talking about putting out a 5-song EP early next year.
Hmm.
As far as the singles go, it's just kind of what we've always been advised from
Okay.
like management or different artists that we talk to, just in the world of like TikTok and Instagram. Like the a single song can completely change your career. 30
Right.
seconds of a song can change your career if it
Right.
hits
Yeah.
the algorithms right.
Things just, I think it's definitely always been, we would love to put out a full length record. But yeah, it's kind of just what makes more sense in the moment right now. And it's just such a singles world right now. But yeah, I think next year we're going to kind of move into a little more like packaging things as, maybe not full length, but start working our way towards something like that.
Okay.
'Cause I still love that. And I know, yeah, a lot of people, they don't really go listen to like, everyone's got their own playlist and like, um, but I think there's some magic to it. Like if you do find those records that you love listening top to bottom. So it definitely is something we want to make happen eventually.
Okay. No, that's
I know
exciting.
Krista, the PR gal, would love that because she was
That's
she
right.
was
She
talking
would.
about how much more PR action you can potentially get from an
Oh
No, for
yeah.
sure.
album.
No, for
Yep.
Yeah.
sure. Well, I do want to ask you about a couple of them. So the newest one is called Man Upstairs.
Mhm.
And I had the lyrics and stuff, and I was listening to it. Obviously, Man Upstairs is commonly a reference to God,
Uh-huh.
but the lyrics are interesting because it feels like you're living in some sort of apartment complex, and the walls are
Yeah.
thin, and this other dude is listening to arguments all the time. I guess can you walk us through the
Yeah.
context of that and sort of the inspiration?
I mean, you nailed it, by the way. There were a lot of things that um, kind of sparked this song for me. So one of them, which is a little more just on the goofy side, our bass player and myself on a road trip, we were like, we're always just coming up with random ideas. And we're like, man, we should make a television series called Man Upstairs. And then it's like, someone's just living up, in someone's spare bedroom, and it's like a different person every week and all this stuff. Anyway, these are the things we do, when we've got all this time. So we went down that road for a bit, and then I was like, okay, we have no idea how to make this happen, but I actually really like that title. So I was like, I think I'm gonna write that. And so that's kind of what sparked the actual title. The idea for the song, it was kind of leading up to it. Um, just having some kind of intense conversations when it comes to religion with people I love dearly, and it's just I feel like it can be a really confusing thing. Like we're all searching for the answers, and I think faith is such an important thing. And when I was thinking about praying, I'm like, it's so funny because I've lived in so many different places and like apartment complexes, and I kind of think of it in that way where it's like, I remember in college, my roommate and our neighbor would just get so mad at us, for being loud. We were 19. Well, I don't know. We were
Sure.
just doing what we do. But, whether it's like a party or whether it's a fight or something, I was like, oh, that's kind of an interesting concept because that's kind of how I think about it. When you're praying or anything like that, it's like, oh, I wonder if, this person knows everything that's going on, or I wonder if my neighbor heard that. So that honestly was the concept behind it. I kind of went into the right and was talking to them about a couple of the conversations I had, and I um, said I had that title, and so we were kind of like, let's write it from that standpoint of, I wonder who knows the truth and stuff like that. So I kind of like that the song can be taken quite literally,
Sure.
following this couple in their apartment, or you can look at it on a bigger scale if you want. You
Yeah.
know?
No, it's a great. I don't know if it's called. It's like what's the right term? A double entendre or whatever. But
Mm.
it's cool how you kind of brought those two concepts together regarding Man Upstairs and faith. The four of you are from the Midwest, right? I
Mhm.
grew up in Central Missouri. Very heavily influenced in my childhood by faith and religion. I guess
Mhm.
a common theme is of musicians that are in the Americana genre or country or bluegrass or whatever is a lot of people still hold that experience, near and dear, but there's also a lot of, I'll call, I don't know if trauma is too heavy of a word, but, a lot of
Yeah.
questions,
Yeah.
from those years, I guess. What do you all have an experience around that? And has that shaped, who you are today and the music that you all are creating?
Mm.
I mean, absolutely. I know. Yeah, I grew up in a very religious family. His dad's a pastor.
Oh,
Um,
John's a PK. All right. Well, there you go.
yeah. um, And well, and the other two boys as well. But okay, one of the biggest things is just from different denominations, like for how each thing can have totally different sets of rules and like beliefs, and how one is right and how one is wrong. And so I feel like just where I'm at, my faith, I've always had to just keep it as a very personal thing
Mm,
and not get too engrossed in all that, because I feel like I am surrounded by a lot of people who are in different,
sure.
denominations and have different beliefs about things. And um, I think to stay grounded, it's really important for me to ask the questions that I need to ask. But at the end of the day, I think that my faith is more of a personal thing. And I think at some point, it just kind of has to be, or else,
Mm,
because I don't really see a lot of people finding like common ground on some things. And I think those were some of the conversations that I've had, and some that kind of left me with not the greatest taste in my mouth,
sure.
because that part of it doesn't quite add up and make sense to me. So I think we're all figuring it out, how we
Okay.
need to. But
Yeah.
Well, and I think everyone should be kind of asking questions. I think it's faith and religion is such a personal journey, and it's a never-ending journey. And Channing and I, like, we kind of get leery, or we get cautious of someone when they are 100%,
Mm,
thinking they have the answers 100%, whether it's from a religious standpoint, a political standpoint. Like, there is so much gray when it comes
mm.
to everything in this topic, religion. And so, yeah, it is still something that we ask questions about. We talk to other people about. And yeah, it's an ongoing thing, and
Yeah.
we butt heads sometimes with people when they're like, "This is it. We have all the answers," and we're like, do you?"
No,
Yeah.
it's a great point. I mean, the asking questions bit, again, my experience and hence one of the purposes of this podcast is all about curiosity.
Yeah.
And I think when you're kind of raised in the church, there's not a lot of room for curiosity, and for
Right.
questioning. So
Yep.
I think I totally love that answer because, it is. I think we all need to be more curious,
For
especially
sure.
about
Well,
especially
and
about that.
that always kind of bothered me a little bit because it's like I feel like the reason you question things is when you actually care. If you
Right.
didn't care, you'd just be like, "All right, cool," you know. So I don't know. That's always been. You're exactly right. We should be questioning things, and I feel like that's a very healthy thing.
Did
Yeah.
you were you raised in a church or?
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for asking, by the way. So yeah, it was, I mean, I was in church. It was non-denominational Christian mostly, but we hopped around, we did Baptist, Assemblies of God, all the things. I mean, we were in the buckle of the Bible Belt
Yeah.
in Columbia, Missouri, right? So, and there's a lot of it that I look back with a lot of fondness, but it's just, it's tough because I kind of feel like there was a lot of things I probably missed out on, and just in terms of education or experiences, that I think would have helped me as an adult, but
Yeah, that's a great
I
point.
just wanted to be, kind of the good kid, and
Yeah.
not
Mhm.
get into a lot of things. And I think that clouded my, just clouded things. But again, my parents did the best they could. I respect why they
Yeah.
did that. Obviously they still have a lot of faith and stuff. And so it's just one of those things, but I think, I struggle with stuff that I learned, 40 years ago. I'm like, okay,
Hmm.
is that a thing or not?
Sure.
So, yeah, but I appreciate you asking. So I do want to read one of the lyrics because this is cool, and it's probably hard to get this, sort of verbally, but I just want to tie off the note on "Man Upstairs" real quick. And
Okay.
I'm not sure if this is a verse or a chorus. It's probably the chorus. All right, here we go. Because now we fight and no one wins, like the lights always flickering. Can't keep hidden all that's living underneath the same roof. So is the man upstairs the only one that knows the truth. That's good.
Thank you. Thank
That's
you.
good. Yeah, I love the fact that like your neighbors are they actually more aware of the health of your relationship, kind of like God or
Yeah.
whatever, right?
Yeah, because I think just on a larger scale, especially writing that this year, especially was one of those things where it's just, yeah, everyone's fighting and doesn't really ever feel like anyone's winning. But on that front, I want to give a big shout out though to the people I wrote this song with,
Okay,
Brittany Moore and Alex Keel, who's also our producer.
awesome.
Because when I brought that idea in, there was just like it was like, yeah, let's do it, and it is one that I'm very proud of. And
Yeah,
just like the concept, there a lot of times the ideas I bring in for our band, I'm like they're like pretty specific in a sense of like I don't know. I
yeah.
don't know. Like it takes a little time to for it to quite feel right, if
No,
that makes sense.
yeah.
I'm not doing a
Well,
good job
because
explaining what I mean.
it's a harder topic maybe to approach as opposed to like,
That's true. Sure.
you know,
Yeah.
I love beer songs and truck songs, and
Right.
it's just like a different. That's a little more straightforward when it comes to the writing room, as
Sure.
opposed to like tackling humanity and religion. You
That's
know,
true.
No, it's
Well,
yeah.
and yeah, they're both amazing, and so it was definitely the right room to write it in.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
again, this might be a stretch, but could that song have been written when were in Minnesota, or does the Nashville community and the experiences that you've had the last few years, sort of amplify the chances that that song gets written?
mm,
I think timing matters. I think it had to be here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep.
Okay,
I think it was written at the right time.
yeah.
If I
No.
can't really explain why, but it just feels like it was the right time.
All right, cool. All right, so the other one I wanna ask you about is called The Sequel,
Yeah.
which I think came out a couple months ago.
Hmm.
So this is also, I think, you're tying a couple different things together, but what's the context of that? And, what is actually the sequel in your life or in the experiences that inspired the song?
Magic. And unfortunately, it doesn't always work out that way. And so we thought it was a cool concept of kind of using that sequels. Obviously, I will say, I'm proving myself wrong. There are some good sequels. But I would say for the most part, they're typically they don't, have quite that same magic as the first one. So that's kind of how we wrote that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you all planning any shows or, tour maybe, too much, but right now, but to promote some of these newer singles and some of the stuff that you're also writing right now?
At this point, we're not doing any touring at the moment,
Okay.
but we do have some plans for early next year.
Okay. And
So
and you all
yeah,
perform at 3rd and Lindsley quite a bit, right, in Nashville?
we have a few times.
Yeah.
There's a Roots Radio. They've been a very supportive radio station here, and so they put on different events there, and so we've been able to play a few of their events, which has been awesome. I mean, that place is so cool. So yeah, we're hoping to have, I think right now, like we're very much in kind of getting things ready
Mhm.
for the new year mode.
Yeah,
And
sure.
then we'll kind of come out and be doing some stuff in the new year.
Okay. Where's your favorite place to, perform in Nashville?
I really like playing at the Five Spot is a
Mhm.
cool spot. And I just feel like it sounds really good there. Even when
Yeah.
I go to shows there, it sounds really good.
Mm.
Third and Lindsley obviously I mean, those shows were so fun. But yeah, that and Five Spots it's a cool spot. Yeah.
Alright, well, good. I have some friends that are there that D's is sort of an unknown
Oh,
or not lesser known venue
yeah.
that is,
We played there
pretty
too.
cool.
It's actually we live like 4 minutes from there.
Oh, really? That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah, it's a great spot.
Yeah.
It is.
Well,
They have great live music.
where do you all think that you are today as artists, and then where do you wanna be?
I
Ooh,
think sorry.
you, me.
Go for it.
Um, I tend we try to keep a mentality of like check the little box and then hope that the big box happens down the road. Because yeah, obviously, I think anyone that's in music, the pinnacle of accolades or Grammys or whatever. So you kind of shoot for that, but I think it gets overwhelming if it's like my goal is to win a Grammy
Sure.
or my goal is to headline arenas. And so for us it's more manageable to be like, okay, we're going to try to get, X amount of followers this month, or Channing's going to make 2 TikTok reels a day or whatever the heck. And so I think checking those smaller boxes, if we just keep consistently doing that, then a year goes by and you're like, oh, we've made some really great progress. Um,
Yeah.
was that a cop out answer?
Uh, what?
Was that a cop out answer?
No, that was your answer. I think as far as where we're at artists right now, I think one of the biggest struggles, and I see a lot of people go through, it's kind of like finding, your sound, or like kind of what you truly are about. Because I think it's totally okay to try some things, like if it feels right in the moment. Like we have definitely, had songs where we were so pumped about it in the time, and then you look back and you're like, ooh, I don't that doesn't really seem like me. But I think where we're at now, just having a pretty good handle, and part of that is just life and just, getting older, honestly, because you just kind of find yourself a little bit more. And so I think it's a little bit easier to bring that into your artistry because you're not, I mean, don't get me wrong, still searching and still like,
Yeah.
figuring things out. But when you look back like 10 years ago and then look now, I'm like, oh, I definitely have a better idea of not only who I am, but what I want to kind of like bring to the table as an artist. So in that sense, it feels really good right now. And then, like John said, we definitely have the grand goals, and I think one of the ones we've talked about a ton is just getting on some more tours with people, as like supporting act slots and things like that. That's something that we're really, really striving for, to just keep growing the fan base. I mean, that's kind of, for me, it's not like, okay, if I'm not this famous in 2 years, I quit. Like, we've been doing this a long time. Like, it's just kind of in us. So I think it's just like making, the right goals and then taking the right steps. So yeah,
Yeah.
touring, supporting slots, just building, seeing that growth, whether it's, more people listening to your music or something catches them wherever it is. There's so many platforms now, so there's just, it's kind of like there's endless opportunities, even though it can be overwhelming. But
Sure.
I think just kind of finding that reach, and hopefully your music is connecting people. That's kind of it, really. Well, initially when I had the idea, I was like, I was just thinking about, like different sequels, and I was like, oh, that would be like a cool thing to make into a song where it's like you go through a breakup and then, you know, they're with someone else and you're like, I hope it's like a sequel. This is why we write with people, because I took that into the room and they're like, well, that sounds a little, and I'm like, yeah, it's too much. That's just too much. But that being said, I personally have been in a relationship that was very on again, off again for many years. And I also have multiple friends who have kind of are or have been in that situation. And it's like looking back, you cut things off and you break up for usually the right reasons. Um, but it's always hard to let go of someone, especially when you're in love. And so I feel like a lot of people do get back together, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Obviously, this is written about when it doesn't. But yeah, this was also Alex Keel, our producer, and then Zach Dyer, one of my good friends. And so I wrote this with them. And it was just another one kind of taking that concept, you break up and you keep getting back together because you think you can kind of recapture the magic.
No, that's good. That's really good. So a couple more questions. I have to ask you all about where did the inspiration for all these videos come from? Like who was that? That's like, oh, let's do some crazy shit
Our music videos.
on for our music videos. And the one,
So
obviously the one that's blown up with like 500,000 views on YouTube is it's from the song "There's a Weight." And when I watched that, I was like, what's going on here? And it took me a couple plays, and then I did some research. I still can't believe you sing that backwards. And then I was like, well,
it
there's no
was,
way she does that live, and you've actually done it live. It's crazy.
I have done it live. And it's pretty wild because I don't, I don't know. I mean, I guess I shouldn't say I could do the whole thing from memory, but I think I could still to this day do most of it from memory because it was just I just had to spend a lot of time on it. But the idea, that was like one of our first music videos. And John, I feel like a lot of times, you usually have concepts, and like, I feel like you love to come up with video ideas. He does. He really does. Um, and that one, his original idea was to do like a reverse video, but not with the actual singing of it. It was our videographer, Ben Boutwell. He did that one, and he's amazing. But he was like, man, he's like, I have asked artists if they would do this, and he just caught me at the right time. I was like, yeah, let's do it. And he's like, are you sure? Like, this is a commitment. And I was like, no. I was like, if we're gonna do it, let's do it. Because there was one, he loved this mute math video. That's where,
Mm,
because they did it in that video. It was kind of I can't remember what year that was, but
yeah.
so that's where he initially got the idea. And he's like, I've been seeing if anyone will, jump on board and do this with me. And I was like, okay, let's do it. You're gonna have to give me some time, but
I just don't know how you did the inflections and the pronunciations of all these words backwards and
Yeah,
committed
it
to memory. I
was
mean, it's
we
insane.
we had to take we took the isolated vocal track and then we put it in a recording program and reversed it. So, and I'm sure maybe you've messed around with stuff like that, like if you play a record in reverse, that sort of thing.
Sure.
And then Channing basically transcribed what the lyrics sounded like, which it sounds like a foreign
I mean,
language.
seriously.
And then, yeah, but she had to do that. So it lined. I don't know if you've seen on YouTube, we put out like the actual take.
Mm-hmm.
There's a couple things where like behind the scenes where there's footage of her singing along to the reverse video. And yeah, that's just what she had to do.
Well, because it
So it
was
lined
so
up.
funny because I don't, obviously, I just did not think about it correctly. But in the beginning, I was like, all right, I'm just going to write out the words just backwards in general. And then I was like, oh, no, no, no. That is not it at all. Like it was such a, it was definitely a time consuming thing. But, and I was so nervous because we were like, we have to get this. It actually kind of worked out because the take you have to get it in one take, but the first one we did, it started raining the day before and it's in the video, and so we were like, oh no. But it actually ended up working out because we came back the next day, and I feel like just like having that take out of the way, because that's what I was so nervous about. I was
Yeah.
like,
Because we couldn't just run it
yeah,
back.
I can't just like
she's
redo.
covered in paint and like, yeah.
But anyway, that's a big shout out to Ben Boutwell, because that was kind of him like taking the reverse concept and next step and
It's wild.
yeah.
Well, I think the cool thing
taking
about that is there's a lot of artists that the last thing they want to do is create content or, post a short or a reel or, all those things. And if that's, I don't know if it comes naturally, but if you all have those ideas, I mean, that's got to help, that's got to help shake things up for you all, and sort of make you stand out a little bit from the masses. You know what I'm saying?
It's funny because, yeah, I think we do naturally love to come up with random ideas for things. And then when it, with the social media stuff, just the amount that you're supposed to be pumping out, I feel like for a second, it took away a little of that for me because I was just so like stressed about it. But now I've gotten in a really good flow where I'm like, hey, it's no big deal.
Sure.
Like you can't be, I talk to friends about this all the time. I'm like, I get it, because some people are so precious with everything they put on stuff, and I'm like, that's not really our brand in general, honestly.
Right.
To be like, okay, this 30 seconds, everything better look as polished and as this and that. I'm like, I feel like part of it is showing people your personality and kind of what you're about. So I'm not really too precious with not our music videos. Those, there's a lot of time and like thought into those. With like random things, I kind of just go with the flow. And if it's feeling right in the day, like some of the just random off the fly ideas that come in and you just do it. And those are the ones that are doing the best because you're just not overthinking it. I just try not to overthink that part of the
Well, and I think that's like a
job.
recent thing. Or like maybe you used to overthink it.
Oh, for
but
sure.
It's just like, it's so ridiculous the amount of content that like the industry or like our management team is super helpful with, like, hey, here's your schedule for this week of what you need to release. And it is a workload. Like that's a full-time job that Channing has to tackle.
But
like posting on TikTok 3 times a day or whatever.
But that has helped me a ton, just getting a good rhythm with it. And ultimately now it's like, it doesn't really feel like a big deal, if that makes sense. Like obviously some days I'm like, well, but most days I'm like, oh, cool. Like there are just so many things you can do, and you never know like what's going to connect with someone, what's not. Sure. So it's kind of just like, all right, here you go.
No, that's good. Well, I opened the episode with, I put you on the spot, each of you. So I'm going to close it with a different question, but it's something I ask everybody. It kind of came up earlier around this notion of curiosity, right? So Channing, I'm going to start with you this time, and I'll give will give Jon a little breather. He'll have a heads up, but so Minnesota, marriage, moving to Nashville, the music, the videos, everything. I guess, what are you most curious about today?
Oh, what am I most curious about?
Like anything?
Yeah, it could be life, music, food, whatever.
What am I most curious about? Oof, it's tough. I mean, I feel like most of my thinking energy, does that make sense? I feel like for me, it's always like, like just adding to like the idea list that I have for different writes, it's like I'm just always curious about like you know, like what kind of songs will be next and like what kind of ideas, how can I make this a thing? How can I like make this a cool concept? And so that does take a lot. I'd say like most of my like creative or just a lot of my energy does go into that. Like sometimes I hate it. It's late at night a lot too, where I just can't sleep because I'm like, I just want to think of something cool before I fall asleep. So I don't know if that quite answers it, but I'm always just curious about, I don't know, what songs will come next. And because, you know, I write a lot for our group and also do a lot of writing for other people. So I feel like that just always is something that's on my mind. And I'm always continuously striving to, you know, just get better and better at. And
Okay.
curious. What am I curious about?
John, what about you?
Oh, aliens for sure.
You're not the
just
first person that said that. I guess what are you curious about?
Somebody give me the answers. Oh, really? There's a lot of people said that?
Oh,
A few people, not a lot, but a few. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
No, I listen to a bunch of podcasts and stuff, and yeah, I'll get into that stuff hard.
Okay.
Yeah, but in like on a micro level, always curious about music, guitars, gear. It's like the never-ending tinkering with music and getting super nerdy and detailed about it. That's never-ending thing.
Okay.
And that's what's so cool about Nashville. The high concentration of nerds and musicians is amazing.
Yeah. I'm sure it's a constant education for both of you.
Yeah.
All right. Well, cool. Man Upstairs, new single from Lake and Lyndale. Channing and Jon, really appreciate your time. It's a pleasure to meet you. And good luck.
Thank you so much. This was fun.
Yeah, good luck. Hopefully I'll catch you sometime. But have a great holiday season, okay?
You too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, you guys.